After 10 years building my tech company from nothing, I finally achieved my dream of owning a lakeside vacation home in Maine, a sanctuary that represented every late night and missed weekend. Then I discovered my sister Megan had stolen my spare key and was secretly lending my property to friends without permission. Scrolling through Instagram, I saw strangers lounging on my custom furniture, drinking from my glasses, sleeping in my beds. My blood boiled seeing my sacred space violated. What Megan never expected was that my calculated revenge would expose her lies in front of everyone who mattered to her. Before I tell you how I finally stood up to my sister after years of being taken advantage of, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever had to deal with a boundary-crossing family member. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, my sister Megan and I had starkly different childhoods, despite sharing the same parents and home. I was the responsible firstborn, expected to set an example and held to high standards. Megan, 4 years younger, was the perpetual baby of the family whose mistakes were consistently excused with "that is just how she is." This pattern established our dynamic early and followed us into adulthood. While I worked summer jobs from age 16 and put myself through state college studying computer science, Megan floated through life on charm and our parents' generosity. When she failed classes, our parents hired tutors. When she wrecked her first car, they bought her another. I learned to solve my own problems. Megan learned others would solve hers. After college, I poured everything into my startup developing security software for small businesses. For years, I lived in a tiny apartment, reinvesting every dollar back into the company. 70-hour weeks were standard. Vacations were non-existent. Dating was an afterthought. Meanwhile, Megan drifted between liberal arts programs, traveled extensively on our parents' dime, and maintained an active social life she meticulously documented on social media. The turning point came when I was 32. After a decade of grinding, my company secured a major contract with a retail chain, followed by acquisition offers from several larger tech firms. I ultimately sold for enough money to be comfortable for life, though I stayed on managing my division. With financial security came the ability to finally breathe. I purchased my dream property, a 3-bedroom lakefront home in coastal Maine, with panoramic water views, a private dock, and modern amenities throughout. This house represented everything I had sacrificed for peace, beauty, achievement. I spent months personally selecting each piece of furniture, installing a professional kitchen, and creating the perfect retreat where I could decompress from corporate pressure. From the beginning, I established clear rules about my vacation home. Family could occasionally use it, but only with explicit permission, advance planning, and strict guidelines. No parties, limited guests, careful treatment of furnishings, and thorough cleaning before departure. These boundaries seemed reasonable to everyone except Megan. "Why so uptight about your precious house?" she would ask whenever I mentioned the rules. "Not everything needs a user manual, Bert." Initially, I only shared the property with our parents for their anniversary, and a few close friends who respected my space as much as I did. Megan repeatedly asked to use it for weekends with her friends, but I hesitated, knowing her casual attitude toward others' possessions. After months of begging, I relented, allowing her one carefully scheduled weekend. To my surprise, she followed most guidelines and returned the key promptly. This single success led to my critical mistake. When Megan asked for a spare key just for emergencies, since she visited the area occasionally, I agreed after extracting multiple promises that she would never use it without explicit permission. 6 months passed without incident. Then, while scrolling through Instagram one evening, I noticed something oddly familiar in the background of a photo posted by someone I did not know. It was my distinctive blue kitchen backsplash. Confused, I clicked on the profile and found more photos, strangers, lounging on my custom sofa, drinking wine on my deck, sleeping in my guest room. The caption read, "Amazing weekend at Megan's family lake house. So generous of her to share this paradise." My stomach dropped. Clicking through related accounts, I discovered at least 5 different groups had stayed at my home in recent months without my knowledge. In each instance, Megan was either present or tagged as the gracious host who had provided the key. Physical evidence confirmed my suspicions. My next visit revealed unfamiliar stains on the living room, rug scratches on hardwood floors, and a collection of strange items left behind cigarette butts, despite my no-smoking policy bottle, caps wedged between deck boards, and even underwear stuffed behind a bathroom cabinet. My neighbor Walter, a retired professor who lived there year-round, confirmed my fears. "Your place has been quite popular lately," he mentioned casually. "Lots of weekend gatherings, young folks, music until late. Thought you should know." I confronted Megan during Sunday dinner at our parents' house, showing her the social media evidence. Rather than apologize, she became defensive. "It is just sitting empty most of the time anyway," she said, rolling her eyes. "My friends loved it, and took good care of everything. Why are you being so selfish?" Our parents predictably minimized her actions. "Sweetheart, maybe you are overreacting," Mom suggested. Megan was just being generous. With my property, I responded incredulously. "That I paid for. That she did not have permission to use." Dad sighed. "She is your little sister, Bert. Family shares with family." I left dinner early that night, a familiar feeling of invalidation settling in my chest. Megan had once again crossed a boundary and faced no real consequences. But this time, I refused to let it go. This violation felt different, more personal. My sanctuary, the reward for my decade of sacrifice, had been treated like a free hotel by my sister and strangers. The next day, I changed the locks and installed security cameras throughout the property. What I did not realize was that this would only be the beginning of Megan's deception, not the end. Despite our confrontation and my explicitly revoking her access privileges, Megan apparently had made a copy of my key before returning the original. "The security cameras I installed captured the truth," she continued, bringing friends to my property when she thought I would not find out. 3 weeks after changing the locks, I received a mobile alert from my security system. Logging into the camera feed from my office in Boston, I watched in real time as Megan led a group of 6 strangers through my front door. They carried coolers of alcohol, overnight bags, and what appeared to be party supplies. I called immediately. When Megan answered, the background noise suddenly hushed as she obviously stepped away from the group. "Hey, what is up?" she asked casually, as if she were not standing uninvited in my living room. "I can see you right now, Megan. You are in my house with people I do not know." A pause. "Oh, well, I was going to text you, but it was last minute, and these are just work colleagues. Super respectful people. We will clean everything perfectly. You need to leave. Now. All of you. The locks have been changed. You broke in with a copied key. Do not be dramatic. We drove 3 hours to get here. We cannot just leave. You have 30 minutes before I call the police to report trespassers." She hung up. The camera feed showed a heated conversation, frustrated gestures, and eventually the reluctant gathering of belongings. They departed 40 minutes later, Megan slamming the door hard enough that the camera feed shook. The following day, I drove up to assess any damage. The visit had been brief, but they still managed to leave wine stains on my new couch cushions and crack a custom glass end table. Empty bottles filled the recycling bin, and someone had apparently tried to light my gas fireplace, incorrectly scorching the decorative stonework. What bothered me most was finding receipts from a local liquor store showing nearly $400 in purchases charged to a corporate card with Megan's name. This suggested a troubling escalation. She was now using my property for professional purposes, possibly representing it as her own to colleagues. My concerns were confirmed through a painful conversation with Walter, who had chatted with some of Megan's guests while they were loading their cars. "Nice group of marketing folks," he said when I stopped by to thank him for keeping an eye on things. They mentioned they were excited to finally see the vacation home Megan talks about at work all the time. Apparently she has photos of it on her desk. Says it is her family lake house. I felt physically ill. This was not just unauthorized use anymore. It was a complete misrepresentation. My sister was building her professional reputation using my property as evidence of her success. A quick online search of Megan's social media presence revealed the extent of the deception. Her Instagram profile now featured a highlight reel titled "Lake Life," showing dozens of photos of my property presented as her own. In her LinkedIn profile, she had recently updated her bio to mention being between 2 homes, Boston, and coastal Maine, implying co-ownership of my vacation property. Things escalated further when I discovered she had actually been charging some friends to stay there. A Venmo transaction I glimpsed on her phone during a family gathering showed a payment labeled Lake House Weekend with a rental fee comparable to professional properties in the area. My sister had effectively turned my vacation home into her personal income property. Multiple attempts to discuss this maturely failed. Megan deflected, minimized, or turned emotional, accusing me of being materialistic and ungenerous. Our parents continued to defend her, suggesting I was making too big a deal out of family using family resources. I consulted my attorney about legal options, but he advised that family matters are often better resolved without courts when possible. Document everything first, he suggested. Build your case before deciding your next move. I followed his advice, installing additional cameras, collecting social media evidence, and keeping records of every unauthorized visit and resulting damage. What I discovered shocked even me. The final straw came in late September, 6 months after the initial discovery. My security system alerted me to unexpected visitors, but this time the scope was unprecedented. Camera feeds showed not just Megan and a few friends, but a convoy of vehicles unloading what appeared to be 20-plus people in business casual attire. They carried laptops, presentation boards, and catering supplies. Through my company contacts, I discreetly learned that Megan's marketing firm was holding a weekend strategy retreat for their top clients. The email invitation forwarded to me by a business associate who had received it described the venue as our creative director's private lakeside estate generously offered for this exclusive gathering. That creative director was Megan. She had apparently convinced her entire company that she owned my property and had offered it for a corporate function. The catering invoice, professional cleaning service, and rental furniture delivery I found when searching her name in connection with my address confirmed this was a major professional event, likely funded by her company under false pretenses. Most disturbingly, when I accessed the company's website, I found promotional materials for the event featuring professional photographs of my home's interior, with Megan prominently positioned as the host and apparent owner. The caption read, "Join us at Creative Director Megan Wright's private Maine estate for an exclusive weekend of innovation and connection." I finally understood the full picture. My sister had been systematically using my vacation home to craft a false image of success and wealth that elevated her professional standing. She had moved far beyond simply letting friends crash occasionally. She was now engaging in what amounted to corporate fraud. After consulting again with my attorney, I formulated a plan. The company retreat was scheduled for an entire weekend. I would allow it to begin as planned on Friday, then make my appearance Saturday morning when everyone was gathered for their main session. I would bring irrefutable evidence of Megan's deception, forcing her to face consequences in front of those she had been deceiving. The plan was not just about revenge, though I cannot deny the satisfaction I anticipated. It was about finally establishing that my boundaries were real, and violations would have actual consequences. After years of enabling Megan's behavior through forgiveness without accountability, I was finally ready to stop the cycle. I spent the week preparing a detailed presentation with time-stamped security footage, social media screenshots, and documentation of property damage. I gathered financial records, showing my ownership and Megan's lack thereof. I collected evidence of her charging friends for stays and misrepresenting ownership to her company. By Friday evening, as I watched through security cameras while 23 marketing executives and clients settled into my living room for welcome cocktails, I was ready. Megan stood confidently by my fireplace, wearing an expensive dress and gesturing around the room as if showing off her personal kingdom. Little did she know that in 12 hours, her carefully constructed facade would come crashing down in front of everyone whose professional respect she had worked so hard to gain through deception. Saturday morning arrived with perfect Maine autumn weather, the kind of crisp, clear day that showcases the property at its best. Through my security feed, I watched as the corporate group gathered on my back deck for breakfast, catered by a local service. Megan moved among them, confidently playing the gracious host in my home, pointing out features of her property to impressed clients. I arrived at 11, parking my car, just as their morning session was beginning in my open-concept living room. Through the large windows, I could see a projector screen set up with Megan standing at the front preparing to lead a presentation. 20-plus professionals sat attentively on my furniture, and additional rented seating coffee cups and notepads in hand. The security code I entered still worked, of course, as it was my house. The subtle beep of the system, announcing a new entry, caused a few heads to turn as I walked in dressed in business casual to match the group. Megan's sentence trailed off mid-word. When she spotted me, her face transitioning from confusion to shock to panic in seconds. "Bert," she exclaimed with a forced smile, quickly moving toward me. "What an unexpected surprise. Everyone, this is my brother who I mentioned might stop by." This last part was clearly improvised, as the confused looks on several faces confirmed no such mention had occurred. "We are just in the middle of our brand strategy session," she said quietly, trying to guide me toward the kitchen. "Maybe we could catch up later when we break for lunch." "Actually," I replied at normal volume, "I think I should introduce myself properly to everyone now." Her fingernails dug into my arm as she whispered, "Please do not do this. We can talk about everything later. I promise." I gently removed her hand and stepped forward toward the curious group. "Good morning, everyone. I am Bert Wright, and I want to welcome you all to my home. I am the sole owner of this property, which I purchased 3 years ago after selling my software company." The room grew uncomfortably quiet. A middle-aged man in the front row glanced between Megan and me with narrowed eyes. "I understand there might be some confusion about ownership," I continued calmly, so I thought it was important to clarify the situation in person. "Bert is being modest." Megan jumped in desperately. "This is our family property that I have access to. Just a misunderstanding about terminology." The same man spoke up. "Megan, you specifically told the board this was your personal property when you offered to host our strategic planning retreat here. You said, and I quote, 'My lake house would be the perfect private venue for our top clients.' Perhaps I could clarify things. I suggested, pulling out my laptop. I have prepared some information that might help everyone understand the situation." Over the next 15 minutes, I presented my evidence methodically and professionally. The security footage showing Megan entering with multiple unauthorized groups. Social media posts, where friends thanked Megan for lending them her lake house. Screenshots of Venmo transactions where she charged for stays. Photos of damage from parties she had allowed. And finally, company emails, where she had explicitly claimed ownership to secure approval for this corporate event. Throughout my presentation, the room's atmosphere transformed from confusion to uncomfortable understanding. Several executives exchanged concerned glances. One woman was furiously taking notes. The middle-aged man who I had determined was Megan's boss sat with an increasingly stern expression, arms folded tightly across his chest. Megan attempted several interruptions, each more desperate than the last. "This is just a big misunderstanding about family property use rights. Bert and I have different interpretations of our arrangement. I was going to discuss compensation for using the space." When I finished, I closed my laptop and addressed the room. "I apologize for interrupting your retreat. I know many of you traveled far to be here. However, I cannot allow this event to continue under false pretenses. Megan did not have permission to use this property, does not own any part of it, and has been repeatedly asked not to enter without explicit authorization." Megan's boss stood up. "Miss, Wright, is what your brother's saying accurate? Have you misrepresented ownership of this property to the company and our clients?" Megan looked around the room, perhaps searching for a sympathetic face, but found none. Her carefully constructed professional image was crumbling in real time. I may have exaggerated some details," she admitted finally, "but the company has benefited from the arrangement. Our clients love this setting. The company has paid for catering, additional furniture rental, and transportation based on your assertion that the venue was free because you owned it," her boss stated flatly. "Not to mention the liability issues of holding a corporate event on property we had no legal right to access." "I can explain everything if we just take a break and discuss privately," Megan pleaded. I addressed the group once more. "I understand this puts everyone in an awkward position. Given the circumstances, I must ask that the retreat conclude and everyone vacate the property by noon tomorrow. I will not take action against your company, as I believe you were misled as well." Megan's boss nodded grimly. That is more than fair. On behalf of the company, I apologize for this intrusion. We will of course compensate you for the unauthorized use of your property. He turned to the rest of the group. Everyone, please pack your things. We will reconvene at the Portland Marriott this evening to continue our sessions. As the group dispersed in awkward silence, many giving Megan a wide berth, she finally broke down. Tears streamed down her face as she approached me. How could you humiliate me like this? In front of my entire company, my clients. You have ruined my career. I looked at my sister, feeling not satisfaction, but a strange mixture of sadness and resolution. No, Megan. You did that yourself when you decided to build your professional reputation on a lie. And this was after multiple warnings and chances to stop. What am I supposed to do now? She asked, mascara running down her cheeks. You are going to pack your things and leave with everyone else. Then you are going to repay me for all damages to the property. Return any money you collected by renting out my home. And most importantly, you are going to stop taking advantage of people who care about you. I walked away as she stood there crying, feeling the weight of years of enabling finally lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in our adult relationship, I had set a boundary with actual consequences, and it was long overdue. The immediate aftermath was as difficult as I had anticipated. Megan left the property that afternoon without speaking to me again. The remaining corporate guests departed early the next morning, several apologizing to me personally for the intrusion. Her boss assured me they would handle the matter internally, implying significant professional consequences awaited my sister. My phone exploded with family calls within hours. Our parents were furious. Not at Megan for her years of deception, but at me for exposing the truth in a way that caused her embarrassment. How could you humiliate your sister like that? Mom demanded. You could have handled it privately. I tried handling it privately. Multiple times. For months, I reminded her. Megan continued violating my boundaries and escalated to involving her workplace in her lies. Dad was equally unsupportive. You have always been harder on her. More established. She was just trying to impress people at her job. By committing fraud, I asked. By charging people to stay in a house that is not hers. By causing thousands in property damage. Their defense of Megan never wavered. But for once, I refused to accept their framing. I ended the call by saying something I should have said years earlier. I love you both, but I will not apologize for finally demanding respect for my property and myself. For 3 weeks, silence from Megan. Our parents maintained a chilly distance. I used the time to replace damaged items in the vacation home and implement even stronger security measures, including a keypad entry system that could assign temporary access codes and track who entered and when. Then a plain envelope arrived by registered mail. Inside was a cashier's check for $16,000 and a handwritten note. This covers all damages, unauthorized stays, and money I collected from friends. I am truly sorry, Bert. What I did was wrong and I have no excuses. I took advantage of your generosity repeatedly and betrayed your trust. I understand if you want nothing to do with me, but I hope someday you might forgive me. Megan, I deposited the check, but did not respond immediately. This seemed like the first genuine apology my sister had ever offered me, and I wanted to think carefully about my response. Another month passed. I learned through mutual connections that Megan had been demoted at her company and placed on probation. She had moved from her expensive apartment to a modest studio and deleted all social media accounts. She was by all accounts facing real consequences for perhaps the first time in her life. When I finally called her, our conversation was awkward, but surprisingly honest. I'm sorry I had to expose everything that way, I told her. But nothing else was working. You do not need to apologize, she replied quietly. I pushed you to that point by ignoring all your previous attempts to talk. I was entitled and selfish, and I convinced myself I deserved to use your things because you had more than me. Where did that thinking come from? I asked. After a pause, she said, probably from a lifetime of mom and dad making excuses for me while holding you to higher standards. They never made me face consequences, so I never developed that internal compass. I always thought someone would bail me out. That insight surprised me. It showed a level of self-awareness I had not seen from my sister before. Our relationship did not heal overnight. Trust rebuilds slowly, in small moments of kept promises and respected boundaries. 6 months after the confrontation, I invited Megan to the lake house for a weekend visit with clear guidelines. She would be a guest in my home, not a co-owner or host. To my surprise, she followed every rule meticulously. She even brought a housewarming gift, a custom doormat reading, "Please respect the property and its owner," that made us both laugh, breaking some of the tension between us. Over the next year, our relationship transformed. Megan started her own small marketing consultancy, building it ethically from the ground up, rather than through false impressions. She began repaying our parents for years of financial support they had provided. Most importantly, she stopped expecting others to solve her problems. As for me, I learned that enforcing boundaries is not cruel, but necessary for healthy relationships. My enabling had actually prevented Megan's growth. By finally holding her accountable, I had given her the opportunity to become more responsible and authentic. Our parents eventually came around too, though the adjustment was difficult for them. Watching Megan succeed through legitimate hard work helped them understand that their protection had been holding her back, not helping her. 3 years after the confrontation, Megan joined me and my fiancé for a week at the lake house. Sitting on the dock watching the sunset, she said something that showed how far we had come. "You know, I used to be jealous of everything you had," she admitted. "But I never considered what it cost you to build it all. Now I understand the satisfaction of earning something through your own efforts. Thank you for finally standing up to me. It was the wake-up call I needed." Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone who keeps crossing your boundaries is to finally enforce them. Had I continued allowing Megan's behavior, she might never have developed the self-reliance and integrity she now demonstrates. Have you ever had to stand up to a family member who took advantage of your generosity? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more about establishing healthy boundaries. Do not forget to share this video with someone who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, it is never too late to start demanding the respect you deserve from the people in your life.